Well, one of the key challenges for Israel in this war has been the battle for Israel's legitimacy due to the rapid increase in anti-Semitism and, of course, heightened scrutiny on exclusively the Jewish state. Hananya Naftali has been a warrior for Israel both on and off the battlefield and joins us today to speak about the challenges Israel's facing in the coming months of this war. Hananya, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be here.
Now, you've been a fighter in the IDF and also, of course, in the digital space. I wanted to hear from you. How long do you think it will take Israel to effectively eliminate Hamas? I mean, we're in the thick of things right now. How is it going?
Absolutely. So there were reports that the IDF has eliminated thousands of terrorists, about 9,000, as reported lately by the Wall Street Journal. But the debate, as mentioned earlier, that it's not enough. It's between 20 to 30%. And the question is, how come the IDF, one of the most powerful armies in the Middle East, has only eliminated 30%? Now, to answer that, it's actually very simple. As someone who served in the Israel Defense Forces myself, we do everything in our power to only target terrorists, not civilians. But Hamas, on the other hand, he's doing exactly the opposite. He is hiding among civilians while targeting Israeli civilians, committing a double war crime. So that has been a challenge for the Israel Defense Forces to only target Hamas terrorists. That is the mission.
Now, you've been very active in telling Israel's side of the story, both as a soldier and also as a private citizen, as an activist on social media. And you yourself have been in situations in which the IDF has gone out of their way to protect or avoid civilian casualties, as you just referred to. What is the difference between what you've seen on the ground as a soldier, including in Gaza yourself, and what we're seeing reported on social media about Israel's conduct?
Well, it's quite preposterous because I have to say, let's start from the top. Like you said, the mainstream media is reporting wrongfully about what Israel is doing. But as someone who served in the Israel Defense Forces, I'm going to shock the viewers because actually the first thing that you're getting on your first day in the Israeli army is this thing called the IDF Code of Ethics. This is the first thing that you're getting on your first day in the Israel Defense Forces, and I got this. You're taught about human rights, you're taught about conduct of arms, how to protect the country, and only then you're taught actually physically how to defend it. So I think it's quite ridiculous because as someone who served in the Israel Defense Forces, I was taught to do my best to only protect my country, not at the cost of Palestinian civilians. So actually, as someone who was also a combat medic, I took an oath to treat everybody. And 99% of the people that I've treated were actually Palestinians and Syrians and not Israelis. So there you go. This is the true face of the Israel Defense Forces.
And this is something that we're not really hearing very much about on the mainstream media, in the international press. Why do you think that is? Why aren't these stories of the IDF calling off strikes in order to avoid civilian casualties? Why aren't these stories being told? I know it's something you focus on in your content.
It has become fashion to hate Israel, but it's really not Israel. It's about hating Jewish people. I had the conversation with an Arab friend of mine who actually immigrated from Gaza to Israel, converted from Islam to Judaism, and he said, look, even if the Jews left Israel, left Jerusalem, went to Europe, they would chase us down to Europe and they would slaughter us because it's a problem with the Jews. It's not just with Israel. And unfortunately, we live in a world where mainstream media does not care about news. They care about political agenda. We live in a world where human rights organizations are led by interests and not by justice. So it's just hypocrisy. If you want to know the true nature of Hamas, if you want to know the true nature of radical Islam, don't ask us, the Israelis. Actually, ask the Iranian people. They will tell you very well about the true nature and the true threat, not just to Israel, but to humanity.
Well, you actually bring up an interesting point. Now we're talking about Iran. Obviously, Iran has been a huge issue throughout this conflict. I'm wondering, based on what you've seen online and in person, the Islamic Republic is heavily involved in the PR war as well as the actual war through their proxies. Where do you see this conflict going, and what's it going to take for the Iranian regime to really be shut down, whether it's through their proxies in the northern border, Hezbollah and IRGC bases, or Hamas in Gaza, or the regime itself?
Exactly right. You see that now the Islamic regime in Iran, they are the head of the snake, as said by Iranian people. They call Israel the little Satan, the United States the big Satan, but actually if you ask the Iranian people, they will tell you who the real Satan is. They have been funding Hamas, training Hamas terrorists, and also providing them with the knowledge to manufacture their own rockets, to launch them at civilians from civilian neighborhoods. So they just sponsor hatred, terrorism, and the Middle East will be a better place without the radical Islamic regime in Iran that is causing 99% of the problems that we are seeing. If you ask, again, the Iranian people, they will tell you that Israel is not the source of the problem, but actually a problem solver.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to human rights violations, we know there have been recent reports about Iran, breaking records for executions even in 2024 so far. This is the same type of disregard for human life we see from these terrorist proxies, be it the Houthis or Hamas. Is that in line with what you saw as a soldier on the ground in terms of how Palestinian leaders treat their own people?
Precisely. I mean, when you're actually on the ground, it's not like you see people wearing, regime uniforms, but you really see very clearly that they are using Palestinian civilians. Hamas wants civilian casualties because they just use it as propaganda that we are targeting civilians. But actually on the ground, you are commanded, not requested, not recommended, commanded to only target Hamas terrorists and not to target civilians. Actually talking about what's going on social media, you see that the people that hate Israel, they don't do this because they care for Palestinians. They simply hate the Jewish state. When I, an Israeli who served in the Israel Defense Forces, defend Israel, I do it out of love for my country, not hate for Palestinians. As an Israeli, I love Palestinian people and I wish peace for them.
Well, thank you, Hananya. We are out of time, but thank you so much for this insight. Definitely interesting developments both on the ground and online. Thank you for what you do.